Hi, everybody, and welcome to my webinar on the cost of content. Thanks for joining. So topics we're going to cover today are rethinking content, how to craft content, how to measure performance, and a few quick wins. So make sure you stick around to the end for those. So this presentation will be available for you guys to watch later on. There'll be some references to tools, and there'll be links to those. There'll be a few polls for you guys to fill out. Don't worry, they're completely anonymous. And if you have any questions along the way, use the Q&A section, or if you're a client, contact your account manager. So a little bit about me. My name's James Russell, and I've been heading up content at Indago for the last 6 months. I began training as an all-rounder in SEO, but kind of fell into copywriting, and the rest is history. I'm currently exploring the future of AI in the content marketing space, which is, there's a lot of really cool productivity tools that I'm discovering. So let's set the scene with a few stats around content marketing. Now, I think these numbers make it clear that content marketing continues to be a pivotal element in the outreach of most firms. And there's an increasing recognition of the importance of hiring specialists in content marketing teams. It's also really evident that the traditional kind of blog posts that we're all familiar with and that we're all making, they're still the cornerstone of content marketing strategies. So this presentation is really going to be focused on how you get the most out of those blog style articles. So really, content is here to stay, but let's realize what the right way of going about it is. So let's start rethinking our content mix. So why are you creating content? So our first poll is going to come up now. We're pretty much asking you, what's the core reason that you're creating content? And it's really interesting to see what people's answers to this are. It's really important to have a good understanding of why you're producing content. So a lot of the time you hear that people are producing content because they're KPI'd to do it or because they know their competitors are doing it. And, for a reason that your competitors doing it is it's a good reason to explore creating a content marketing strategy. But I really want you to start thinking about whether your content strategy is really efficient for you in terms of how much it's costing you and your return on investment, and whether or not you're really just producing content for the sake of it, which doesn't help anybody. So really, I want you, if you take nothing else away from this webinar, I want you to rethink your content strategy. So how much are you spending on content? How are you gauging return on investment, and whether or not content is your best option? As a content writer, I want people to invest in content and find value in it. But, if it doesn't make sense for you right now, then there's no point in doing it. So let's get into a few of the myths we see around content marketing. So first of all, it's easy to mistake content as being free or really low cost to produce. The thing is, even the most rudimentary blog article is going to have a labor cost attached to it. And we'll explore the cost of content in the next slide. But professional content creation has a significant cost attached to it. So you should never mistake it as being something that's throwaway and that you don't need to watch carefully in terms of how much you're spending. Second, they kind of have this idea that content can be harmless. So, even if it's poorly researched and it doesn't add much value, the worst that'll happen is that people won't engage with it and it won't get views. But when you upload poor quality content, it can really damage the relationship between you and your customers. So, the main reason we produce blog content is to build our brand authority and, engage with people in a way that other forms of marketing can. But because there's so much aggregated content out there and so much poor quality stuff on the internet, it's really easy for people to get frustrated. So you really want to make sure that you have good reasons for producing content and you're not just spitting it out for the sake of it. Lastly, there's this idea that content performs on its own. So we write a piece of content, we upload it, and then we pat ourselves on the back for a job well done. Well, there's actually a lot more that goes into it. You really need to, aggressively promote your content so that it's getting as much views as possible. So you need to look at every possible promotional channel there is and make sure you're leveraging it to its fullest extent. Ahrefs did a study of like 1 billion pages and realized that 90% of those pages didn't get any views at all. And of the remainder that did get views, only around 4% got more than 11 unique page views. So if you really want to avoid that fate, you not only have to ideate your content effectively, but you've got to make sure you're promoting it effectively as well. So let's look at the average cost of content. So at a cost per hour of $100, you can see that, content, there are a lot of costs that go into content and it takes a lot longer to craft a good piece of content than a lot of people expect. In all honesty, some of these estimates are pretty generous. So, depending on the subject matter and the complexity of it, a blog post could take significantly longer than 2 hours to research. So these are just some rough estimates, but it's really important that you understand from this that there are costs attached to creating content, especially at a professional level that, really starts to generate results, because the more research tools you invest in and the more effort you put into crafting your content offering, it's obviously going to cost more at the same time. So you really need to make sure you're balancing, your numbers and making sure that content, isn't just a money pit for you. We did an analysis of the content. We've done it for clients at Indago, and we realized that the cost per view for that content was ranging around between 12 cents and $11.23. And, when we outsource content, that those costs go up even higher. And, when you outsource stuff, it's always more expensive than doing it in-house. So when we did that analysis, we discovered that the content that was really diverse in formats, provided a genuine resource, was posted frequently, had great keyword research behind it, and leveraged a lot of marketing channels in its promotion, actually had a lower cost per page view than content that was a lot more generic and didn't have a lot of promotional strategy around it and was kind of posted lazily every 2 to 3 months. So, when you put a lot of investment into promoting your content and making sure it's robust as possible, it actually costs less per page view. So let's look at how you craft good content. So the 3 W's of content creation, as I like to call them, you've got what's the goal, your objectives, who cares, your research, and where's it going, your promotion. So let's take a look at them. So what's the goal when you're creating content? So we've got our first poll coming up for you guys. Answer as honestly as you can. It's always interesting to see how people answer this one. We can broadly categorize content goals into brand awareness, customer engagement, and website performance. So a lot of the time, your content can aim for more than one goal. But for example, a blog post designed for brand awareness can also increase your website performance, or even be repurposed to nurture prospects in your sales funnel. So you've got a lot of room to be flexible with the goals for your content. It's just really ensure that you know what they are, because it's going to play an important role in how you're measuring its performance later on. So let's look at the most important part of content, researching and ideating it. So a great resource is your internal data. So if you've been using Google Analytics on your website, you're probably sitting on a gold mine of data about the content you've got already. And you can look at metrics like entrances, bounce rates, and if you've been tracking goals on the page, goal completions, to compare that to what's on the page and see what factors are contributing to that result, and then start to hone your content strategy moving forward based on that. It's the same thing with your internal data from social media analytics. So if you've got Facebook posts that are getting a lot of engagement, think about what factors went into that, and is there a content theme you can work with and build upon. There's so much data there that's informing you on how your audience connects with you and what topics they really care about. So it's always good to start by consulting your internal data when you're trying to ideate new content, because it's an insight into what your audience already cares about. Another great way to look at your internal data is Search Console Insights. So this is something I've been playing around with recently, and it basically combines Google Analytics and Google Search Console data together to give you a really, user-friendly, easy to navigate snapshot of your content marketing and, what's performing the best. So, you can see what referring links you're getting, what the most popular content is, the page view duration, the most searched queries on your website. And it really gives you a neat little snapshot of the performance of your content on your site. So that really kind of throws all your internal data together in a neat way. So I recommend everyone check it out. Of course, you've got Google search. So when you want to find out what people are searching for, type variations on that query into Google search and look at the people also ask snippets. You can even look at the autocomplete function to see, what are variations on that search term that you can leverage. And when you're looking at these questions, you really want to be asking, are these questions being answered adequately? Can I offer a new perspective or insight? And, can you mold it for your audience? So a lot of the time, a question that's out there will be answered pretty authoritatively by a competitor or another big player. And, you shouldn't be disheartened by that. Take that as an opportunity to put your own spin on it and craft it for your audience. So you're not just copying what they're doing, you're putting your own spin on it and making sure it's relevant to your audience. When you're trying to get those people also ask snippets, a really good tool is SEO Minion. So basically, it just allows you in one click to scrape all of that people also ask content and download it into an Excel file that just makes it nice and neat and easy for you to see all those questions, and it's a huge time saver. So I recommend everyone check it out. And of course, Google Keyword Planner. So this is integral when you're doing SEO or paid search campaigns to realize, what keywords are performing the best, what the search volume is, and back up your content decisions with hard data. And so when you're doing blog content, you can also use Google Keyword Planner to get rich insights into what keywords you should be including in your content. And when you're using it, it's really important that you understand the keyword intent behind different keywords. So when you're doing blog content, it's mainly you're targeting informational search queries. You've got other search queries like navigational and transactional, which is someone looking for something or ready to make a purchase decision. So you really want to make sure that when you're creating content for a keyword, you know what the intent is, because you don't want someone who's got a transactional intent landing on your blog and feeling like they're being misled. So pretty much most of the time, you want to target informational keywords when it comes to your blog content. So there's a whole suite of other research tools you can use to ideate your content. At Indago, I think we're using over 30 tools, paid tools, to inform our SEO and paid search strategies. And personally for me, Surfer SEO and SEMrush have been the most impactful in my day-to-day work, because they allow me to really get granular insights on what goes into the top performing content, right down to what subheadings I should use and how many images need to be included. So if you're spending a lot already on content, as we looked at earlier, then you should really look at investing in some paid tools to make sure it's as effective as possible for you. So let's look at promoting your content, which, as we discussed, is super important, because you don't want to put all this hard work into content and then nobody sees it. So you've got your basic stuff like sharing on social media, blasting your email list, enriching it with keywords, as an SEO promotional strategy. But something that a lot of people miss is their earned media. So are there journalists or influencers or partners, industry partners that you can connect with that might have a vested interest in sharing your content? And that gets that out to an even further audience that's probably more relevant to your niche. So don't forget about earned media. Second, we've got paid media, and a lot of the time we're allergic to using paid media for our blog content, because we typically associate paid media with conversion focused landing pages. But again, when we look at the cost of producing content, there's really no reason not to use paid media. And you could remarket a piece of content to someone in your sales funnel, with a social media paid campaign, and that's how you're making sure that your content is getting in front of the people who are going to be most receptive to it, making it even more effective. So there's really no good reason not to think about paid media if you can budget for it. So let's look at how you measure performance. So when you're measuring performance, it's essential that you're tracking, learning, and adapting all the time. So you need to stay on top of your performance metrics, understand what they are, study the data as it comes in, and draw the appropriate conclusions. So every search metric can imply something about your content, and take all those learnings and implement it into your future content strategy. So you'll end up with a really refined and honed way of doing content specifically for your audience that no one else will be able to replicate, because it's all coming from your data. So let's take a bit of a closer look at the metrics. So each content goal you have has different metrics associated with it. So you've got unique page views for brand awareness and authority. With customer engagement, you're looking at likes, comments, and shares. Website performance, you're looking at bounce rate. And as I said, all of those things indicate something about the effectiveness of your content. So if you're getting a lot of unique page views and you've tried a new promotional strategy, you can infer that, hey, that promotional strategy is working really well. We're getting more eyeballs on our content. If you've got a really high bounce rate on a piece of content compared to everything else, maybe you can think, okay, what's wrong with this page? Is there something wrong with the headline? Am I using the wrong images? Is it, is the search intent, have I targeted the wrong search intent? So people are landing on the page and thinking, this isn't what I'm looking for, and then they exit. So, all of these metrics, you can infer things about your content based on them, and then craft your future strategy based around that. So you know what to look for, and you know what's going to be effective for you. And as I said, this data is so important for honing your content, and taking you from just someone who shoots out content for the sake of it to someone who's getting the most value for money out of every piece of content they produce, which is what this presentation is all about. So thanks for sticking around to the end. So here are a few quick wins you can leverage. So, if you've been doing content imperfectly, all of those blogs you've uploaded, they're still assets. You can still use them. So there's lots of ways you can take that content a little further and get the best value out of it. So it's not a complete lost cause. So for example, if you've got a piece of content that didn't perform well and it's got outdated information, take everything I've talked about today, spruce up that content and put it out as a 2021 updated version with new information for today's users. You could add, if you've got a blog that's performing really well and it's really convincing people, then maybe, add a call to action to sign up to a newsletter and see how actually get a measurement of how convincing your copy is and getting someone to drive an action. Another one that's really great is to take a piece of written content and convert it into a video, or an infographic that allows you to take that written content and transform it for an audience who might have not read that piece of content. So there's so many things you can do to take content that's sitting there being ineffective and get breathing new life into it, which I hope everyone's got a few pieces of content that they can do that with. So to summarize everything I've talked about today, I really just want you to think about whether or not when you're ideating new content, you can invest in some tools to take your content to the next level, making sure that you're understanding the goals for your content and how to measure the effectiveness of hitting those goals and how you can learn from those metrics. Making sure that you're assigning an appropriate promotional budget to make sure that your content, isn't just being lost and forgotten after you put all that effort into making it. And I think a great thing to do that we kind of forget is that content shouldn't be written in isolation. You should be involving, everyone from your different teams so that, you have a cross-disciplinary approach to content creation. So it really reflects every element of your business. So before you go, let's look at some of the poll results we got. So from what we're seeing, it looks like for the question of why you're producing blog style content, a lot of you answered that your KPI to do it, but you're also getting great results. So it's really awesome to see that what you're doing right now seems to be working for you. As for content goals, it seems like there was a pretty even split between driving traffic and hard or soft conversions. So for the question of how you promote your content, it looks like it's a pretty mixed bag. So there's pretty even spread between all the answers. So I'm thinking, if you're not using one of the promotional promotional channels referenced here, then take a look at it and see if it can work for you. And last, it looks like more than half of you said that you're measuring the performance of your content, which is really awesome to hear. If you're in the other half that isn't measuring the performance of your content, I hope the presentation today kind of shows you the value of doing that. So you'll hop off onto your analytics account and start looking at the metrics of your content and making your content offering as good as it can be. So please, thanks for coming along and feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great day.